How you doing, everybody? This is Chris Fitzpatrick from Chris Fitzpatrick Speaks. Thanks for spending a few moments here on my YouTube channel. We're trying out a new mailbag feature where each week I'm going to pick a question from the community and I'm going to answer it right here on video. It can be on any topic on your mind, anything that I regularly speak about, including job search, resume writing, interviewing skills, leadership, emotional intelligence, or really anything that's on your mind that you think I might be able to answer. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram at Chris Fitzpatrick Speaks, or you can email me at cwfitzpatrick@gmail.com and send those questions in, and maybe your question will be featured right here on the YouTube channel. Now, this is the first question I'm tackling, and it comes from a good friend of mine, Jeff Kayer, who is an employer relations and career development director at Harrisburg University. Jeff and I go way back, and he asks a very popular and very important question. He asks, what are you looking for on a resume from an intern candidate who may not have a ton of or any professional experience? What grabs your attention in those 9 to 12 seconds to impress you? Really, really great question, Jeff, and thank you for sending it in. Before I jump into the answer, I want to tackle the topic of the 9 to 12 seconds that you bring in. Now, in this particular case, when Jeff says 9 to 12 seconds, he's referring to one of the reports of the average lengths of time that a recruiter or a hiring manager looks at a resume upon first glance. First time we're seeing it, trying to decide whether or not we want to move this resume ahead or if this resume is going to go in the no pile. I've heard a few other similar studies which have estimated 6 to 7 seconds. So we're going to split the difference, average it out, and we're going to go with an 8-second time frame. We're going to assume that recruiters and hiring managers on average spend 8 seconds the first time they look at a resume, making the decision whether or not they want to dive any deeper. Now, job seekers, you might be a little insulted to hear that after spending hours, maybe even days or weeks on your resume, going over revisions, reviewing it with a career center advisor, talking about it with a mentor, applying with it, and then deciding you don't like it anymore and doing another revision on it, that after all of that hard work, we're only spending 8 seconds on average looking at it the first time. You might be thinking to yourself, well, how am I supposed to get hired if the hiring manager is only going to give me 8 seconds on the resume? And your feelings are not misguided. But let's also take a moment to do the math and consider the bigger picture. Now, in 2022, I hired 113 interns and co-op students at my company. This pool of 113 hires came from a much larger pool of more than 13,000 applicants. That means less than 1% of the applications submitted resulted in a hire. Now, if I guaranteed that I would spend 1 full minute, still not a terribly high amount of time, on every single resume that I ever looked at, just in the application pool, let alone at a career fair, 1 minute, no more, no less, means I would be spending 216 hours, which is almost 5.5 complete full-time work weeks at 8 hours per day, during which the only thing I do is review resumes. Every minute, on the minute, no meetings, no phone calls, no emails, no bathroom breaks, just a lunch break in the middle of the day, and 8 hours of resumes, reviewing 60 resumes per hour. Still, all to arrive at the same 113 hire result. That's a really heavy amount of time, 5.5 complete full-time work weeks just on resume review. Now, if I take that same batch of 13,000 resumes and I'm viewing them for 8 seconds each the first time I look at them, that's 104,000 seconds of resume review. Still seems like a lot, but when you back it out, that's only 1,733 minutes or 28.9 hours. That's much more palatable when you consider the amount of time it takes then to revisit the strongest resumes, share them with the hiring managers, do phone screens, schedule interviews, and plus all the other work that I have to do. So against the backdrop of dozens or maybe even hundreds of other resumes, and with a window of only 8 seconds, how is someone without a lot of professional experience supposed to Indiana Jones themselves into that second look pile? Well, first and foremost, here's an important note. I don't use the same lens to look at all resumes. Not all resumes are created equal. This question, and so many like it, always depend on what the job is, right? So keep this in mind. It depends on the job. And I'm not saying that to try and cop out of the question. It really does matter what the role is and what the company is that you're going to be applying for. So, Chris, what do you look for in a resume? It depends on the job. What skills should I highlight? It depends on the job. Should I list my extracurricular activities? It depends on the job. I'm going to look at 4 criteria that I use most often with resume review and talk about why they're important. Number 1, most important, is demonstrate the required skills. Now, when a player is selected in the NFL draft, one of the first milestone moments as part of the new team is getting their playbook. The playbook lets them know where to line up, who they're going to be next to, and how to execute a particular play in order to help the team and the individual be successful. A job description is literally like a playbook that the company is handing you and publishing, and whomever shows they can best execute that specific game plan will end up getting the job. So line up your resume to the required skills of the job that you're applying to. Don't use a generic basic resume, apply to 200 jobs with the exact same file, and expect that you're going to get 200 calls back for interviews or land your dream job. You might get lucky, but you want to try and have the odds a little bit more in your favor. So instead, identify jobs that you know you're qualified for and interested in, and then tailor your resume to line up with that job. Whether technical skills or human skills, and please note, human skills are what I'm renaming soft skills because I think that soft skills diminutizes a little bit how valuable those skills are. So whether technical skills or human skills, highlight any prior internships, work experiences, classroom projects, or extracurricular activities you've taken. Do it in a way that highlights the skills that are being sought in the job posting. Here's a pro tip. Identify keywords from the job description, and if that matches you, infuse them into the resume itself, just in case the recruiter is using a keyword finder or artificial intelligence. If your resume contains skill-based keywords, there's a greater chance that an AI bot will match your resume up with the job description more favorably. Just don't lie. You don't want to find yourself in an interview completely unprepared to back up what you put on your resume. And even if you could back it up, you might be setting yourself up to fail and ending up in a job that you aren't aligned with and don't even like. Number 2, organize the page. Consider the information that you want on top of the resume, and that's what you want to highlight first. Maybe it's education, maybe it's experience. Go with whichever's most relevant to the job posting. Format carefully. Fill up one page without it appearing cluttered or incomplete. If the recruiter or the hiring manager has only 8 seconds to review a resume, most of the time we'll probably start at the top. If the opening section is relevant to the job, there's a greater chance that the 8 seconds will get extended. Or, better yet, that your resume will get moved ahead to a hiring manager. Also remember that there are 4 major categories of communication: verbal, nonverbal, written, and listening. Your resume is an extension of your written communication, and your listening skills are very similar to your reading comprehension. So how well you read and comprehend a job description is indicative of your listening skills. Make your resume the best possible representation of your personal brand and of what you think you can bring to an organization. Number 3, measure whenever possible. If you can quantify a skill or an experience, do it. For example, if a computer science-based role calls for proficiency in C++, don't just stop at stating that you are proficient in C++ when you can say that you have 2 years of active experience using C++ in class projects and or work experiences. If you're seeking a sales role and have had any prior experience or success with influence that you can quantify, even if you've never worked a sales job, you might be able to highlight how much money you fundraised as part of a particular philanthropic organization. Or maybe you were in charge of new member recruitment for a club or an organization. You can highlight that and quantify it to really connect with that recruiter or that hiring manager. Utilize numbers to your advantage. Number 4, demonstrate authenticity. Yes, I want to see that skills match up with a job, but I also want to see that the experiences and interests have a human behind them. I want to know that behind that piece of paper is a real authentic person, especially if there's not a ton of work experience to list. Now, a lot of those interests and activities on your resume suggest the presence of those human skills we talked about earlier. Volunteering with a community group shows that you have work ethic, teamwork, and drive. Holding a leadership role in a student organization will make me wonder if you have leadership in your future at our company. Playing competitive team sports demonstrates teamwork, competitiveness, goal setting, and time management. If two candidates have similar skill alignment within a job, but one candidate has significantly more well-rounded human skills, I'll opt for that candidate almost every single time. Admittedly, I'm a sucker for student involvement, leadership, and volunteer experience. Those are the 4 things I look for in the first 8 seconds. How the job seeker's skills line up with the job. How clean and easily readable the resume is. The measurement of their experience and skill. And an authentic representation of who they are as a person. Bear one last thing in mind. Rarely does a resume result in a job offer. That's not the resume's job. The resume's job is to get you a follow-up interview, and the interview can nab you the role. The resume should provide enough information to keep the recruiter or the hiring manager wanting to learn more about you, and that's also why one page is appropriate. I also want to remind you that this is what I look for in a resume. Another hiring manager or recruiter might have a different set of criteria, but this is a really good place to start. And I'm sure that there are going to be some folks who tell me in the comment section about why what I look for is wrong, what they look for is right, and I hope you can learn a lot from that as well. For more information on topics like this or any of the other topics that we're going to have, hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel, check out some more of these videos, and follow me on LinkedIn, connect on Instagram, at Chris Fitzpatrick Speaks, and I'll have plenty more of this information as we go. But until then, I just appreciate you spending some time with me.